Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, helping you prepare for the PMP exam. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome back to the PM Prepcast. We take you step by step closer to the PMP exam. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner, and in this lesson we want to explore the key exam activities together. In particular, we want to review the four following areas. We'll give you some exam readiness steps. We'll talk about exam study steps. We'll show you how you can boost your exam studies, and then we'll talk about some recommended study materials. In fact, each of these four areas is going to be a major section of this presentation. If you remember, at the end of our very first lesson, lesson 00.00, the welcome lesson, we had a few take action slides, and on these slides I gave you a high-level overview of how to get started with the PM Prepcast and then how to make your way through the various lessons that we have. So those recommendations were mostly aimed at finding your way through the PM Prepcast. In this lesson here, we want to go a bit broader and talk about how to study for the exam in general. We'll give you additional ideas, more tools, our recommendations, and places you can go if you think you need to go beyond our lessons. So as we saw in the lesson overview, we want to discuss four main areas in this presentation. Here in the first area, we present to you our recommended steps to get you exam ready. And for that, you have to read the handbook, create a study plan, join PMI, and fill in your PMP exam application. Let's look at these four steps in detail. Step 1 in getting ready for the exam is to simply read the PMP Credential Handbook. You can find this on the pmi.org website in the certification section, where PMI has a detailed page for each of their credentials and certifications. And then on the details page, you will see a link to the handbook. At the time of recording, you'll find this sort of on the right-hand side in a box that's slightly highlighted, but PMI obviously often changes their website, so don't count on that. But it is in the certification section. In particular, I want you to read the first 20 or so pages in this free document, as well as the Code of Ethics section in the handbook as well. The Code of Ethics is part of the exam, and you must accept the code in your online application. So it's actually a good idea to know what you accept. In step 2, you want to create a study plan for your exam preparation. As a project manager, you know the importance of having a plan in place. So you want to create your exam study plan, you want to follow it, you want to keep track of your progress, and of course, adjust your plan whenever you see that it's necessary. And just in case you hadn't noticed, we have just applied the standard plan, do, check, act cycle to your study plan here. Well, how do we create it? Well, a simple way to create your own study plan is by using yet another PMI provided document called the Examination Content Outline. You will find a link to the Examination Content Outline on the same pmi.org website page where you found the Credentials Handbook that we talked about in the previous slide. This content outline contains all the knowledge that you will be tested on your exam. So what you can do is simply read this document and, based on what you learn from it, identify your personal training needs and create your own personal study plan. As an added bonus, by reading this document, you will also start to get familiar with all the concepts that will be on the exam. So it's a good exercise in itself. Every study plan is of course different, but one of the best practices that you must implement in your study plan is to set aside daily time for your studies. Don't think that you can simply study for 10 hours on Sunday. Instead, plan on studying 1 to 2 hours every day. In this way, you will progress much faster in your studies. In step 3 of your exam readiness, I want you to become a PMI member. I want you to do this because, well, the PMP exam has a fee, a cost associated with it. And if you are a PMI member, you will receive a discount on this exam fee. And believe it or not, the discount you receive is higher than the fee you pay to become a member. So it just makes financial sense to first become a member, pay, I believe it's $129 in membership fee, and then apply for the PMP exam and receive a discount that is greater than these $129 or whatever it may be dollars that you had to pay for the membership fee. But more than that, I also want you to become a member of your local PMI chapter, because very often local PMI chapters, they offer in-person PMP classes. So if you think that you want to go beyond the PM Prepcast and you want to go to a local class where you can learn more about the PMP exam, then doing so with your local PMI chapter is usually a relatively inexpensive way of adding additional classroom training into your curriculum. So join your local PMI chapter and maybe you'll even get a discount on their workshop. In step 4 of your exam readiness, I want you to prepare your online application offline. You want to read the paper-based application form and organize all the required information. You can then also gather all the documents that you need and show that you have the required contact hours and experience hours. A bit of a problem is the fact that PMI keeps changing the location where this particular PDF document of the paper-based form can be found. It used to be part of the credential handbook, then it was available only via a secret link on the website, and lately it's been made into a public link on the same page where you downloaded the previous 2 documents I recommended to you, but who knows where it may be today. So I'm afraid you're just going to have to search for a bit to find and print this. We do, however, try to have links to all of the 3 documents that I've recommended for you so far in our student workbook. So look into your PDF version of the student workbook where you will find this. But again, this printing of this form is just for you. You don't actually want to fill this in. You just want to use it to see, well, what is required on my application? What do I have to fill in? And then you want to go online to the PMI website, to certification.pmi.org, and you want to actually fill in your application online on the PMI website. We are moving on to the second main area of this lesson, because now that you have taken several large steps towards understanding the exam and application process, it's time for you to start studying by first reading the PMP examination content outline, then studying the Code of Ethics, watching all the lessons of the PM Prepcast, and possibly even use a workbook or an in-classroom workshop in addition to the PM Prepcast here. So you will have noticed already that step 1 here in our study recommendations is basically a repetition of what I said a few slides back. Read the examination content outline. By reading this outline, you'll be introduced to the domains and tasks that are outlined for the exam. You'll become familiar with the knowledge and skills that you need to know for the exam. You'll obtain an initial understanding of the tools and techniques that are going to be part of the exam. Reading the document will also introduce you to all of the vocabulary that you need to be aware of for the exam. And of course, we've looked at this a few slides back, by identifying and learning about what you need to know for the exam gives you the basis to create a study plan. And by the way, we have a complete module for you in which we look at this examination content outline. So please go ahead, print the examination content outline, and then review all the presentations here in the Prepcast from our Module 70. We'll take you item by item through the complete content outline. Exam study step number 2 is again a repetition of something we've said before, and that is read the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. And since I'm repeating it, it must be important, right? Yes, it really is that important. The ethics part of the exam is not something that is tested separately. Instead, ethics permeates every aspect of project management. Whether you use agile methods or traditional methods doesn't really matter. So don't expect to see any questions that directly reference the code of ethics. Instead, questions will test your understanding of ethics in a scenario-based environment. These might be situations where you have to make a decision, and the correct answer is the one that is ethically sound according to the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. So, for the exam, you therefore still have to have a pretty good understanding in regards to which standards in the Code of Ethics are mandatory and which ones are aspirational. The PM Prepcast also has a separate lesson on the Code of Ethics in which we describe these mandatory and aspirational standards in detail and give you some examples of how they actually apply on real live projects and PMP exam sample questions. And of course, as step 3 of your study activities, we want you to watch and listen to all the lessons of the Project Management Prepcast during any and all of your down times, like you're a passenger in a carpool going to or returning from work, when working out on a stationary bike, waiting in line at the post office when you're riding the bus, and so on. The course was specifically designed so that it will enable you to maximize your study time by turning unproductive moments into productive exam preparation opportunities. That's why you should always carry your cell phone with you and copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lessons of the Prepcast onto your cell phone so that you can watch them at a moment's notice. It's always a good idea to also purchase an examination preparation workbook, and then as you are watching the lessons of the Prepcast, read that book alongside what we say so that you get the same information from 2 different angles. Maybe you are more of a visual, a reading learner, so the book will assist you in that. You have to know how you prefer to learn. We do have some recommended books in our student workbook, and I'll actually recommend one to you in a few moments here in this lesson as well. But let me also say, the student workbook that you receive alongside our Prepcast lessons is not what I'm talking about. The student workbook is just a synopsis of every lesson. A PMP exam preparation workbook, however, is a course in a book that talks about all the knowledge you need to know for the exam. And of course, you may also want to take an exam preparation workshop. I mentioned that earlier on. Many PMI chapters locally offer these classes. So if you feel you want additional in-classroom impact, you want to exchange yourself with other students, have a teacher in front of you that goes through the materials again after you've seen the lessons of the Prepcast, then taking an exam prep workshop in classroom is a way to do that. Area 1 of this lesson was all about getting you to a basic exam readiness. Just now in Area 2 we looked at how to study. And now that you have started your studies, it's time to look at the third of our 4 areas, and that is how to boost your exam studies. You can boost them in person, you can boost them virtually, but there is one very important boosting activity that you just simply cannot ignore, and you have to do that. More about this last one in just a couple of slides after we've looked at the in-person and virtual boost in detail. boosting your studies in person is rather simple. You just have to go to meet and find others who, like you, are preparing for the exam. This is why a few slides back we also recommended that you join your local PMI chapter. So, I want you to go and attend the dinner meeting of your local PMI chapter and ask around to find others who are also currently studying for the exam, just like you are doing. With those new friends, you can now form a study group if there are multiple like you who are studying. Or you can just find one person maybe, then, well, you can become study partners. In both cases, you would try and meet the others regularly to share study experiences and keep each other's study morale up. If you are unable to meet anybody in person where you are locally, well, then do it virtually. Instead, you can become a member of online PMP forums like Google Groups, Yahoo Groups, or also LinkedIn offers groups as well. You can find hundreds just like you who are preparing for the exam. Just do a search for PMP and you'll find many active groups. We even found some groups on Facebook these days. And here is that one activity that will boost your exam preparation exponentially. You have to answer as many sample exam questions as you can and also take complete sample exams. Let me explain why. If you are a 110-meter hurdle athlete, you will practice this distance again and again and again before you go to the Olympics. Your PMP Olympic sport will be to take a 200-question multiple-choice exam that takes 4 hours. So you must practice this particular Olympic sport again and again and again, just like any athlete. And you may have heard me say this one before, as you take these exams, keep score of the percent of questions that you answer correctly. As a general rule, if you consistently answer 80% of questions that you have never ever seen before correctly, for about 2 to 3 exams in a row, then you can consider yourself to be ready for the exam. Now, this 80% rule, that's only sort of a gauge. Everyone studies differently. Your mileage may vary. But as a general rule, if you can answer 80% of new questions correctly, consistently, then you can consider yourself ready to take the exam. One warning, though. Make sure everything free you use is current. If you're using free questions, if you're using free study guides that you find on the internet, make sure they're up to date. Make sure that the questions have been updated to be in alignment with the most current version of the PMBOK guide, as well as with the most current version of the PMP exam specifications. Let us now move on to the fourth and final area of this presentation. We want to take a look at a few recommended study materials for you. In particular, you must have your own copy of the PMBOK guide. We give you our recommended exam study guide. We have a recommended PMP exam simulator, and we also have some ideas for other material that you may want to read. The PMBOK guide is your #1 source for PMP exam content information. The knowledge in the PMBOK guide is the absolute minimum that you as a student must read and must know in order to pass the PMP exam. Theoretically, yes, you could just read the PMBOK guide and pass by reading the PMBOK guide, but there are extra tools that you should use that are highly recommended. The glossary in the PMBOK guide represents the official definition of the terms that will be used on the PMP exam, and this glossary, this terminology may be different than what you encounter in other study materials. The vocabulary in the PMBOK guide is also crucial when you're filling in your PMP exam application. You should be using PMI language. You should be using PMBOK guide terminology as you fill in your exam application. This makes the application process, in particular the application review for PMI, much easier if you use appropriate terminology. And though there is no officially confirmed number, training companies estimate that about 60 to 75% of all PMP exam questions are heavily based on PMBOK guide concepts. And frankly, the number itself doesn't matter all that much. It could even be 80%, 85%, 95%. The point is that a large number of concepts come from this one single source, so you definitely want to know it. The PMBOK guide also represents the green sky, or the PMI version of how a project should be conducted, as opposed to the blue sky or real life version of how you currently run your project. This is extremely important if you are a PMP candidate who has been practicing this blue sky project management, do whatever you like kind of project management. You actually are at a slight disadvantage because you have to relearn project management from the PMBOK guide, from the PMI's perspective. It's imperative to get into the PMI mindset in order to successfully pass the exam and to be able to answer sample questions and then real exam questions by applying the PMI way. And here is yet another reason why becoming a PMI member makes financial sense. As a PMI member, one of the benefits is that you can download a free PDF copy of the most current PMBOK guide from the pmi.org website. Even though the PM Prepcast is a complete study approach for your PMP exam, many of our students ask, do you recommend any exam preparation study guides, books that I can read in addition to watching the lessons? And the answer is yes, we do. The team that developed the Prepcast recommends Achieve PMP Exam Success, written by Margaret Chu, Diana Altweiss, and Janice Preston. And by going to this link here, pmprepcast.com/success, it will take you to the most current version of this book on Amazon. But don't take our word for it. Here is a short passage of what another PMP exam instructor wrote about this book on Amazon. He said, Core Performance Concept has done it again. Achieve PMP Exam Success is an indispensable tool for all PMP aspirants. It is easy to follow, written in plain English, and covers everything that you need to know to pass the PMP exam. Not only is it a mandatory tool for students studying for the PMP exam, but is also the most popular curriculum used by PMP exam prep instructors such as myself. I wouldn't use anything less for my students. Keep up the stellar work. So much for the Amazon review. And by the way, this is the book that I personally used when I was preparing for the exam. So if you're looking for a paper-based guide, this is the one. You can easily find it by going to pmprepcast.com/success. And finally, let's not forget that the internet provides a virtually never-ending source of material that you can use to study for the PMP exam. The problem is, of course, to figure out which ones are good, which ones are bad, and which ones are really, really ugly. That's why we only give you 2 recommendations. First of all, we recommend Wikipedia and its associated wikibooks and Wikiversity. For some reason, Wikipedia has a bad reputation because theoretically anybody can change its pages. However, we find that wiki pages on project management concepts are well written and useful for exam preparation. Second, and this is yet another reason why we say that you must become a PMI member, the PMI e-reads section on their website. In this section of the pmi.org website, you have access to hundreds of online reference books on project management. If you are unsure about any topic, simply log into PMI e-reads and search for the term of interest. I'm sure you will find several books that discuss whatever you need in detail. At the end of our lessons, we like to either summarize what you have learned, give you a list of actions that you should follow, and give you some tips as well. But this lesson as a whole is really nothing but a long list of things you should do as you prepare for your exam. And you really should do everything that we've talked about so far. However, if I had to choose 3 things from this lesson that you really have to do, well, here they are. First of all, you must read the PMBOK guide, the PMP credentials handbook, the examination content outline, and the code of ethics and professional conduct. These 4 are just must reads. You cannot get to the PMP exam without having looked at these. Secondly, please sign up as a member of PMI. The benefits of your membership outweigh the cost for your exam, and you can always choose not to renew next year. I have personally been a member since 2004, and I have never regretted a single penny of my membership fee. And finally, do spend the money for a good, reputable PMP exam simulator. It's cheaper than having to take the exam a second time. And with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. So it's time for Justine to say,
Hasta la vista, baby.
and of course I say, until next time.